Front fences are one of the easiest ways to make a house look worse. This one wasn't failing because it was old. It was failing because the design was doing the house no favors. The posts had started to rot, and the whole thing had movement in it, which made replacing it unavoidable. Structurally, this fence had reached the end of its life, but visually, it was already working against the house. Rather than rebuilding the same fence again, this was a chance to fix the real problem. With front fences, the goal isn't privacy, it's definition without dominance. You want to define the boundary without blocking the house, and without hiding the garden that sits behind it. If you can get the old posts out in one piece, it makes life much easier. Broken timber left in the ground just gets in the way and turns digging into hard work. Sometimes they're too far gone to come out cleanly, but even then, clearing as much as you can makes a big difference. I'm digging these post holes down to about 600 millimeters. For a standard residential fence in this sort of yard, that depth reduces the effect of surface movement that causes fences to loosen over time. This fence will sit at around 1200 millimeters high, so that gives roughly 1/3 of the post in the ground and 2/3 above. That balance keeps the fence stable without overbuilding it. As I'm digging, I'm not just chasing depth. The width of the hole matters just as much. I want the post sitting centrally, with enough room around it for the concrete to actually do its job. A good rule of thumb is about 3 times the width of the post. So for a 100mm post, you're looking at roughly a 300mm hole. That gives the concrete enough cover to lock the post in and stop it rocking. For the posts, I'm using cypress pine. It's naturally resistant to rot and insect damage, which is why it's commonly used for ground contact in fencing. It's also a good option from a sustainability point of view when it's sourced from managed plantations, so you get durability without needing treated pine. Even with that natural resistance, I still like to coat the posts with a timber preserver before they go in the ground. It's quick to do, inexpensive, and it adds another layer of protection where it matters most. I don't stop at the ground line either. In my experience, posts usually fail right at the soil level, where moisture sits and splashes back onto the timber. So I coat the post to about 200 millimeters above where the soil will finish. That small detail helps avoid one of the most common reasons fences rot out early. Once the holes are ready, I run a string line from one end to the other. This gives me a clear reference so every post sits on the same line. Using the string as a guide, I place each post as close as possible to the string without actually touching it. Then I check the post is plumb on all sides. To hold everything steady while I work, I clamp a bit of scrap timber at the base. It stops the post kicking out and means I can get it set accurately without needing a second pair of hands. With the post lined up in plumb, I can start concreting it in. I'm using a small amount of quickset concrete in the bottom of each hole. I'm not generally a fan of quickset on its own, as it's not as strong as a standard mix, but this is a busy inner city street, and these posts are likely to get knocked. The quickset pins the post in place straight away. Once that's done, I fill the rest of the hole with a standard concrete mix, 3 parts aggregate, 2 parts sand, and 1 part cement. I'll put those ratios in the description. With the post set, it's a good time to fill any knots or small splits with exterior filler. Work it in with a scraper and wipe off the excess once it skins over. This cypress is rough sawn, so I like to sand it before painting. I start with 80 grit to knock off the roughness, then finish with 120 for a smooth base that paint will stitch you properly. Next up, we're marking the fence height and where the rails will sit. I start by clamping a straight edge between 2 posts and checking it with a level. This ensures everything is perfectly horizontal before I make any marks. Once level, I mark the top of the fence with a pencil, then measure down 140 millimeters to mark the top of the upper rail. From there, I measure down the rail thickness, 66 millimeters in this case, and mark that too. Using a square, I measure in just over half the post thickness and mark the area where the rail will sit. Doing it just over halfway means that when the fence battens go on, they'll cover the screws and keep everything looking clean. You'd see a lot more if I stopped blocking the camera with my hat, like an amateur. I repeat the same process for the bottom rail, then transfer all these marks to the second post on this end. For the posts on the other side of the driveway, the straight edge isn't long enough to reach, so I run a string line from the top marks on these first 2 posts across the driveway. If the string lines up with the initial marks, I know the height and angle are correct, and I can mark the remaining posts accurately. Before I start cutting, I should mention the rails. These are treated pine, prined LOSP, 66 by 42 millimeters. I start by setting the depth of the circular saw to match the thickness of the rail, 42 millimeters. Then I make a series of cuts in the areas we marked for the posts. These cuts make it much easier to remove the wood with a chisel later. Once the bulk is cut, I use a chisel to clean out the remainder. From there, it's just a matter of repeating the process across all the posts. Sometimes, to save a bit of time, I'll drill out some of the waste using an old spade bit, a handy trick if you have one lying around. Then just clean up the rest with the chisel. After the notches are cleared, I cut off a small piece of rail to test the fit. This lets me check that the rail sits perfectly in the posts and make any adjustments before fitting the full rails. I cut the tops of the posts on a slight slope. The idea is simple. When it rains, the water runs off instead of sitting on top and soaking into the timber, and it gives a cleaner finish overall. My saw won't cut all the way through a 100mm post, so I make the cut as deep as I can and finish it off with a handsaw. The exact angle isn't critical. Any fall is better than a flat cut. Next up is cutting the rails. I clamp a square to the rail so the cuts stay clean and square. I'm not fixing them in just yet. I want to paint the cut ends first to protect them from moisture. Now's a good time to do the painting, before the battens go on. It's much easier to get full coverage at this stage, especially around the posts and rails. Once a couple of coats are on, the rails can be screwed into place. With the rails in, it's time to start on the battens. I always fix the two end battens first. That lets me work out the spacing before committing to the rest. On this fence, the screws will be visible, so it's important they run in a dead straight line. If they wander, it really stands out. I countersink them so they sit flush and keep everything looking clean. After working out the spacing, I make a spacer to that exact width and use it as a jig. It ends up being about 16 battens per meter, which gives a nice balance between openness and definition. These battens are 40 by 40 millimeters, cut slightly longer than the finished 1.2 meter height. I'll trim them once everything's fixed so the top line stays crisp. This fence doesn't use a plinth, which keeps the lines clean all the way through. To set the bottom, I use an old piece of timber laid across the base for the battens to sit on while I fix them. That temporary spacer follows the natural fall of the footpath, gives me a neat, consistent bottom line, and keeps the timber off the ground to avoid moisture and rot. Once everything's fixed, it gets pulled out. The battens themselves are spotted gum. It's a beautiful Australian hardwood, and it's known for its strength and durability. It's commonly used for decking, posts, and structural work because it handles weather and wear extremely well. When it's sourced from managed plantations, it's also a sustainable choice, so you're getting strength and longevity without compromising on responsibility. One of the things I love about spotted gum is the variation in colour. You get these natural shifts from pale browns through to deep reds and chocolates, which adds a lot of character without needing anything decorative. Now comes the fun part, cutting the tops of the battens. I clamp a straight edge to the fence to guide the saw and get a perfect straight line. Spotted gum can be tricky. It's prone to breaking and splintering if you're not careful. To reduce that risk, I'm using a brand new blade with plenty of teeth, which gives a clean cut and keeps the timber looking sharp. The last step is attaching the new mailbox. Since every mailbox is different, I won't go into the method here. This simple fence really complements the house and the garden, giving a clean, modern finish. It frames the space nicely without overpowering it, and the timber details will keep it looking great for years. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Bye for now.